The Rekord D has to be the first most boxy car Opel ever produced, and I believe this car also set the boxy standards for many cars that were introduced after its introduction in the 70s and 80s. It was also the first car to focus more on economy rather than power. The Rekord D's design was quite modern for its time, showcasing a more angular squared-off look than its predecessor. The car featured a long hood and relatively short rear deck, giving it a stylish, balanced appearance. Customers could choose from a range of body types, including a 4-door sedan, 2-door sedan, 3-door station wagon, also known as the caravan, a van, and a 2-door coupe. The interior was designed with simplicity and comfort in mind, featuring durable materials, a straightforward dashboard layout, and relatively spacious seating for both front and rear passengers. A total of 5 people could fit in this car. Opel placed a significant emphasis on passenger comfort and build quality as well, helping to make the Rekord D an appealing option for families as well as business owners, for example, with the vans. The Rekord D came with a range of engines, including gasoline or petrol engines, and this time, first of all, being diesel options as well, each providing different levels of power to suit various driving needs. These engines were either paired with a 4-speed manual or with an optional 3-speed automatic gearbox. The smallest engine changed since the Opel Olympia Rekord, as it now was the 1.7 liter inline 4 called the 1700N. This base engine was introduced in 1972 and at that time produced 65 horsepower and was mostly aimed to provide basic performance for city driving and short commutes. It wasn't that powerful, but being the least powerful engine, it still had the top speed of 143 km an hour, a 0 to 100 time of 20 seconds. And that was actually quite okay. It wasn't fuel efficient by today's standards, as the average fuel consumption was 9.8 liter per 100 kilometers, but it was quite okay for the time being in 1970s. Later, this engine was decreased to 60 horsepower and a top speed of 140 and a 0 to 100 time of 21.5 seconds, mostly because of fuel efficiency as well as durability. Besides the 1.7N or 1700N, you also had the 1700S, and this engine had 82 horsepower, being much more powerful than the 1.7N, and also the top speed was higher. At this time it was rated at 155 km an hour, but the 0 to 100 time was the one that improved a lot, now at 16.5 seconds rather than 20 seconds. This engine eventually got discontinued before 1977, as this engine was discontinued in around 1974. A year after 1974, in 1975, the 1.9N or 1900N was introduced, and this engine had 75 horsepower and was more based on economy rather than performance. That's also the reason why the 1700S, which wasn't that based on economy and more on performance, was actually discontinued because of the changing market demands. Besides the 1900N, you also had the 1900S, and this engine actually was before 1975, and it in the earlier stages had 95 horsepower. And this engine offered a bit more power and was a popular choice for those seeking a better mix of performance and somewhat economy. And besides the 1900S, you also had the 1900SH, which was basically like a more sportier car, just like the Rekord C was with the 1900SH, as this engine had 19 horsepower and had a top speed of 160 km an hour and a 0 to 100 time of 14 seconds. Although this engine was actually less powerful than the normal 1900S, because that had 95 horsepower instead of the 90 horsepower the 1900SH had. And this engine was more focused on performance and less on economy, and therefore, to compensate for the loss of the performance of the 1900S, Opel now increased the cylinder bores further and introduced in 1975 a 1979cc version of the engine for their Rekord 2000S. It had a maximum output of 100 horsepower claimed for what was the fastest record from this generation. Neither its power nor its performance matched the 1900H version of the old 106 horsepower Opel Rekord C, which presumably reflected changed priorities in the marketplace following the fuel shortages and price shocks of the mid-1970s. Therefore, a later introduced 2-liter S or 2000S was introduced in 1975, and this produced 100 horsepower. The 2-liter engine catered to drivers looking for a bit more speed, especially on the highways, as it had a top speed of 170 km an hour, a 0 to 100 time of 13 seconds, and was the fastest engine in this generation. It was somewhat fuel efficient, as the average fuel consumption was around 9.6 liters per 100 kilometers, which is not that bad, and in my opinion it is actually quite interesting to see that the 1700N had an average fuel consumption of 9.8 liters when this was 9.6. Besides the petrol engines, the Rekord D finally for the first time had diesel engines available, being available in two different sizes. The smallest size was the 2-liter inline-4 diesel, also called the 2000D, and this engine was primarily made for Italy, mostly for taxis and such. It produced 54 horsepower, had a top speed of 130 km an hour, a 0 to 100 time of 23.7 seconds, and had a good fuel efficiency of around 7.6 liters per 100 kilometers. These engines weren't made for performance, but were made for reliability and fuel efficiency as well. You also had the 2.1 liter inline-4 diesel called 2100D, and this was the normal diesel made for markets that weren't struggling with taxes for diesel engines, and this model and engine produced 60 horsepower. This diesel engine was well suited for fuel-efficient driving and appealed to long-distance commuters and budget-conscious drivers. This was the most primarily used diesel engine and was a bit bigger than the 2-liter diesel because of the decrease in size for the 2-liter diesel being the taxes, and it was actually based on this 2.1-liter diesel. This engine was a bit more powerful than the 2-liter diesel and had a top speed of 135 km an hour, a 0 to 100 time of 23.4 seconds, and had an average fuel consumption a bit higher, rated at 7.8 liters per 100 kilometers. The Rekord D provided a smooth and balanced ride, benefiting from Opel's focus on suspension tuning. While not a high-performance car, it handled well and was comfortable on both city streets and highways. The Rekord's D rear-wheel drive layout gave it reliable traction and helped it feel well planted on the road. Opel occasionally released special versions of the Rekord D with enhanced trims and features, for example the Rekord Berlina. This upscale variant included premium upholstery, a wood-trimmed dashboard, and additional soundproofing. It was aimed at customers seeking a more luxurious option. Besides the more luxurious option, you also had a more exciting option, in my opinion, as this was the Sprint edition. The Sprint model was a sporty version featuring bolder colors, sportier wheels, and often was paired with the more powerful 2-liter engines, appealing to younger drivers or those looking for more exciting drives. Opel produced the Rekord D from 1972 to 1977 with a total output of over 1.1 million units in these 5.5 years, being the second Opel Rekord to hit 1 million units. The model was very successful in Europe, particularly in Germany, where Opel had established itself as a reliable brand for affordable, well-made vehicles. The Rekord D nevertheless sold at a slightly slower rate than its predecessor, and sales slowed towards the end of the production run. The Opel Rekord D competed in the crowded segment of European family cars, facing stiff competition from models like the Ford Taunus, for example, known for its own mid-size offerings. Ford Taunus was similarly popular across Europe and offered comparable performance and features. It also had French competition with Peugeot 504, and this Peugeot 504 boasted a reputation for durability and comfortable interiors, appealing to similar family-focused buyers. It also faced German competition by the Audi 100, and the Audi's mid-size sedan and was also a competitor, often positioned as a slightly more premium option than the Rekord D. And you also had the Volkswagen Passat. Although released in 1973, the Passat was a fresh and competitive entry in the mid-size market with modern styling and front-wheel drive appeal. Predecessor and successor wise, the Rekord D wasn't that interesting, as the Rekord D replaced the Opel Rekord C in 1972. The Rekord C had been in production since 1966 and introduced a sleek, curvier design language, while the Rekord C While the Rekord C was popular, Opel aimed to improve its practicality and robustness with the Rekord D, and also, in my opinion, increased its boxiness. The successor of the Rekord D was the Opel Rekord E, followed the Rekord D up in 1977. It introduced more modern styling with softer lines, improved aerodynamics, and updates to engines and interior features. The Rekord E continued Opel's tradition of offering a reliable and practical family car. This generation Rekord was actually extremely long and was made for 9 years between 1977 and 1986, being, besides the Opel Rekord or the Opel Olympia Rekord, the longest generation of Opel Rekord to ever exist. Thanks for watching this video. If you would like to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe for more, and also check out this playlist with many interesting videos covering various parts of the automotive industry, and I will see you in the next video.